a Roman nobleman Tatulle took his son Orestes, aged 13, to Rome, because he considered such a stay as the indispensable complement to his son's upbringing. From the summit of the capital they contemplate the panorama of the great capital, the Tiber, the Forums, the Imperial Palace, the Colosseum, the Circus Maximus, the Rostrums, the arches, the columns and other ornaments of the eternal city. Impressed, Orestes quotes an old proverb, "As long as the Colosseum is standing, Rome is also standing. When the Colosseum falls, will fall also Rome. When Rome falls, the world will fall." Tatulle smiled and quoted in turn a prophecy of Jupiter in the Aeneid of Virgil on the destiny of the Romans, future masters of the world. People of citizens in toga. Orestes's heart sank with pain and he exclaimed, "But this city was taken by Alaric and plundered by its Goths." Yes, my son, the empire is humiliated today. The barbarians, even more terrible, can return tomorrow because Alaric, Christian king, did not do much damage and quickly left the city. The father and son kept silence for some time. Then Tatulle calms down and says, "Our ancestors lived here. That is why we still have some relatives in Rome." Orestes interrupts him. "I know well the history of our family. Our ancestors came to Pannonia with the army of Augustus. Patavium, our city, was originally an important military fortress, permanent base of a legion. Our ancestors had the honor of managing cities, ordering troops, serving at the palace. Yes, when 2 centuries ago the empire was in crisis and a prey to the invasions of the barbarians. The empire was saved thanks to the emperors and Illyrian officers, our compatriots of Pannonia. Now the difficult times have come back and, perhaps, Pannonia, our little country, will once again save the empire. I know that our ancestors were among those Pannonian officers who saved the empire. They come down from the capital. Suddenly a crowd of almost naked men invaded the streets. They run and strike the people who are on their way. Frightened by this scene, Orestes throws himself at his father, the barbarians. They came back. Tatulle laughs, kisses her son and explains, they are the noble members of the Luperces College. Today, February 15th is their traditional festival. It is a very ancient feast of fertility. These young people make their ritual races around the Palatine after the sacrifice of a goat in the cave of Lupercal where the wolf would have suckled Romulus and Remus. But why do they strike people? They only strike women to procure prosperity and fertility. Indeed, Orestes now sees that many women await the passage of the Lupercus to be beaten and asks, "But it's not painful to be struck like that." They strike with the strips cuted in the skin of the goat and not very strong. It is also believed that this feast keeps the epidemics away. That is why many Christians like to participate in this pagan festival. Tatulle finds a theatre playing Euripides' Iphigenia in Taurus, so that his son can feel the nobility and antiquity of his name. Indeed, the story of 2 friends, Orestes and Pylades, excites the spectators and provokes strong emotions and reflections of his child. "Fate draws us to unknown ends," said the priestess Iphigenia to the friends stoned by the Tauras and destined to be sacrificed by her to Artemis. She admired the courage of Orestes. "A generous heart. How noble is your race and faithful your friendship." The goddess Athena saved the friends but also Iphigenia, who is in fact a sister of Orestes, transported several years ago to the Taurus. The performance ends with the singing of the Coryphaeus, very august victory. "Never leave me and do not cease to crown me. My name is Orestes, is that noble hero, and I will hold my name high and I will be faithful to friends." The boy thinks, what will my destiny do to me? I want victory never to leave me. The years go by. Orestes marries Julia at the age of 24, daughter of the influential Count Romulus. In the prime of life, he brings together the vigor of the body and the spirit. But he does not yet know to what end his destiny will carry him. The Emperor Honorius died on the 27th of August of the year 423 after 30 years of reign. The last years of the life of the Western Emperor were marked by his quarrels with his sister, the Princess Galla Placidia. This conflict reinforced the intrigues of the palace, followed by assassinations and murderous brawls. The foolish appointments disorganized the government and the army headquarters. Finally, the princess is obliged with her children, Valentinian and Honoria, to leave Ravenna and take refuge in Constantinople. Under these conditions, Orestes, despite his ambitions to rise in the career of honors and to assume the duties of the imperial service, preferred to remain in his native city. The death of the emperor caused the passions of the courtiers to be unleashed. The partisans of Galla Placidia do not doubt that the legitimate successor of Honorius, who had no children, is Valentinian. In fact, this boy is the nephew of the deceased emperor and the son of General Constans, second husband of the princess, associated by Honorius to his power with the title of Augustus. Moreover, after the death of Constans, in 421, Galla Placidia herself obtained from Honorius, in agreement with the Eastern Emperor Theodosius II, the title of Augusta. The opponents of Galla Placidia took advantage of the absence of the princess in Italy and organized themselves around Joannes, tribune of notaries, and his friend Aetius. But Romulus, Orestes' father-in-law, and many other courtiers, under different pretexts, took leave of the palace and awaited the results of this merciless struggle. Joannes declares, "What good is a noble origin if it is not accompanied by virtues and humanity? The gifts of fortune often go to those who do not deserve them, while virtue confers on each one a glory of his own. The nobility of origin arouses congratulations, but not praise, while competence not only creates the admiration of others, but is a quality which is indispensable to the future emperor of the West at this time of crisis. What was the use of the noble origin of Commodus, Caligula, Nero and even Honorius? Those who receive their inheritance as a due, abuse it as if it had long been their personal property. It is better to be the first to illustrate his family and his descendants than to dishonor by the mediocrity of his character the glory which has been received from his ancestors." In December, the Roman Senate, after having discussed the situation of the empire and the program of the actions of Joannes, elaborated with the participation of the best jurists and other experts, proclaimed him Emperor of the West. Orestes wanted to begin his career to participate in the rebirth of the empire. But Tatulle and Romulus advised him to wait prudently for the reactions of the provinces, of Galla Placidia and the Emperor of the East. The workshops of Rome, Milan, Ravenna and Arles began to strike gold coins with the diadem bust, draped and battleship of Joannes and the inscription, "Our Lord Joannes Pius Happy August," and with the victory on their reverses. Holding a crucifer globe with his left hand and brandishing a crown with his right hand. But Bonifacius, Count of Africa, does not recognize the power of the Emperor Joannes and supports the claims of Galla Placidia while Spain is under the domination of the barbarians, Vandals, Suevis and Alans. Theodosius II, the Emperor of the East, refused to negotiate with Jean, declared him usurper, and raised his nephew Valentinian to the dignity of Caesar. The civil war begins. The cavalry of Theodosius, commanded by Asper, a young general of Alanian origin, led Placidia and his children along the coasts of the Adriatic Sea, and took by surprise the town of Aquileia. He was in a great hurry because Aetius asked his friend Attila to help him to support the Emperor Joannes. Theodosius tried to prevent the recruiting of the Aetius army by the diplomatic channel, but Oros, the great Khan of the Huns, and his nephew Attila considered the election of Joannes by the Roman Senate perfectly legitimate and declined Theodosius's approach. The situation for Galla Placidia became critical, and she prayed all the nobles of the nearby provinces with their private militias to come to Aquileia. The events was accelerating. One organized a conspiracy at Ravenna. A conspirator led the Asper cavalry through a secret road through the marshes to the imperial capital. The doors of Ravenna opened after a short resistance. Orestes, too, arrived with the private militia of his family at Aquileia because the order of mobilization of Placidia contained terrible threats for the disobedient. The cavalry of Asper returns from Ravenna with the captured emperor. It is reported that Aetius is approaching with an army of 60,000 Huns. Placidia and Asper gathered in the circus of Aquileia the inhabitants, the mobilized militia and some of the troops. Orestes will never forget that day. Joannes, mutilated, without the right hand, was subjected to insults and tortures with courage and indignation. Joannes was sure of his victory, otherwise he could not leave free Ardaburius, brother of Asper and chief of conspirators. Thought Orestes, watching Asper and Ardaburius laugh at the sufferings of the fallen emperor. Victim of his generosity, there was nothing happening on the face of Galla Placidia, no emotion expresses her feelings or distorts her traits. Her 8-year-old daughter, Honoria, was turning her eyes away from the stage, while her son Valentinian was watching the execution with a marked interest. At last, the head of the unhappy emperor, who governed for 18 months, was cut off. 3 days later, Aetius arrived with his army and, under the alarmed glances of the Romans, organized the parades of his horsemen, who had marched in perfect order. Their number, their discipline and their arming impressed a lot Orestes, who cannot help thinking about death. Fortunately for him, the negotiations ended in a reconciliation. Galla Placidia cannot afford to treat Aetius as a culprit because his Huns allies are too powerful. He was appointed General Master of Gaul. His mercenaries were paid well and returned to Hunland after a great solemn parade. Valentinian III, who was only 6 years old, was proclaimed Augustus by patrician Helion in the name of Theodosius II in the presence of the Roman senators. His mother, Galla Placidia, naturally became the regent of the West.